When you're talking about comparing death rates of smokers as compared to any increased death rate as a result of this radiation coming from these concrete blocks, exactly what is it you mean by that? Heat, so the radiation would be that much greater, whereas in the case of the TVA product, it was the radioactive material was put into concrete blocks, and then they were sold for individual homes or offices or what have you. Okay. You want him to talk on the one shot?
No, I mean, I'm ready for his answer.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't, Mr. Belvin, why don't you tell us just what has happened here, what this is all about?
Well, in the early 1960s, TVA was producing a phosphate slag as a result of, it is a byproduct really of the phosphate fertilizer industry. And the phosphate slag is used in the construction of buildings as a makeup of concrete block. The concrete block contains about 25% slag makeup to other aggregate. The slag itself is radioactive, and as a result of a study which was done in Florida in association with the phosphate fertilizer industry in that area, there was a recognized problem that there could be an excessive amount of radiation being emitted from this naturally occurring ore.
We're getting this radio. Where is that coming from?
Oh, is it back there?
That's right.
Rolling? Okay. Mr. Bellman, would you tell us what's happened here?
As most people realize, the Earth itself has natural radioactivity present in it, in uranium, radium, those types of isotopes. And it concentrates more heavily in some types of soil or in some types of ores such as phosphate. In the fertilizer industry, phosphate is used to produce the fertilizer, and from that phosphate ore, through the process of developing the fertilizer, a slag is produced as a byproduct material. This slag is used in building materials and in concrete blocks specifically, and in cement. And it is used on a ratio of about 1 to 4 as an aggregate makeup of the concrete block. It's used because it makes the block light and is easily to handle by the construction crews that build homes. So it's advantageous to use in construction. But as a result of a study which was done in Central Florida with regard to the phosphate industry in that area, it was recognized that the ores themselves contained higher concentrations of radioactivity and could be a problem to persons living in structures that were built on top of the phosphate tailings in that region. So as a result of that, TVA took action in December, realizing that there may be a problem with construction materials as well, to stop the sale of slags for those purposes. And we have not sold or intend to sell in the future those slags for those uses. As a result of this, we have contacted the states of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Tennessee, where the majority of the slags were sold for this purpose. We have been in touch with the directors of the divisions of radiological health of those states. We have also been in contact with EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to inform them of the situation that exists in this area, and we are now meeting to determine a way in which we could examine the extent of the problem if there is one in this area.
If there is a problem, these building blocks, these cement blocks are radioactive. We know that radioactivity causes health problems. Isn't there going to be a problem?
Well, as
or isn't there already a problem?
As many people know, there are many things that cause health effects, and health effects in this regard would be lung-induced cancer. This would be by the inhalation of the radon, and the daughters of radon remaining in the lung and causing a potential cancerous effect in the lung. In EPA's study in Florida, they have made comparisons of the amount of radiation in the slag, or not in the slag, but in the fill underneath the homes, and the amount of radiation that really is getting into the homes through emanation through the concrete floors or through intakes by air conditioning or whatever. They would put it in a perspective that I believe that a person smoking would have a greater incident rate of lung cancer than if he were living in a house constructed of concrete block.
This is the Florida study.
Slag.
This
Yes.
What about the material that was produced here in
The material
Alabama?
that was produced here, we used actually a percentage makeup of Tennessee ore and of Florida ore. The Tennessee ore has considerably less radioactivity in that ore than the Florida ore does. So the amount of radioactivity that's emitted from a structure containing our concrete block would be much less than that in the Florida situation, because there the homes were actually built right on top of the concentrated slag itself, and here it's, as I stated there, the percentage even makeup of the block is about 1 to 4. That is, about 25% of the block would be made up of the slag from the phosphate as the phosphate byproduct material. We also used a mixture of about 65% Tennessee ore to the 35% of the Florida ore in this process of producing the phosphate fertilizers.
So presumably your radioactivity, the amounts of radioactivity in these things will be less than in the Florida.
Should be considerably less than those that have been detected in the Florida study.
Is this any kind of an emergency situation at all?
In our discussions yesterday, we had a meeting involving the directors of divisions of radiological health of the states of Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, and with EPA Washington office, the Atlanta office, and the Montgomery radiation facility, which was responsible for conducting the study in Florida. Those representatives were present, and they do not feel that it is an immediate health hazard or a situation which would have to be responded to, as you refer to, as an emergency situation. They feel it's a situation that should be certainly evaluated, and that it should be done systematically so that we can be assured that we have all the the data that we would need to completely evaluate the problem if there is one in the region where this phosphate slag has been sold.
Do you have any idea how many concrete blocks were manufactured with this radioactive slag?
That would be rather hard to estimate. We have sold over the years in the neighborhood of 3 million tons of the material to industry for the use in building materials.
But no estimate on how many?
No, I don't think we could estimate exactly how many concrete blocks, because it is also used as a cement makeup. But in the cement makeup, it's about 3% aggregate in cement. I have heard estimations that there may be as many as 100,000 homes that could contain some of the concrete slag as a makeup in the block.
In the 4 states?
In the 4-state region, yes.
It was also used for other buildings, office buildings or schools?
Yeah, I'm sure that if schools were constructed of the material and that the material was provided by those companies that were using the slag as a makeup in their block, there would be. We have not identified specific buildings as of this time that contain the slag.
This process of manufacturing the fertilizer went on for something around 20 years, is that right?
Yes.
And you had this radioactive byproduct, but you didn't discover that it was radioactive until just recently.
That's correct.
Why is that? I don't really understand that.
Well, it isn't the fact that we didn't discover it. We didn't realize that it was a problem as far as the industry was concerned. We knew that the phosphate ore, as any other material coming from the soil or from the ground, that it all contains natural radioactivity, such as radium and uranium. It's just that it's a little more concentrated in the phosphate ore than and in like turn, it's more concentrated in the uranium ore than it is in the phosphate ore. So it's a naturally occurring isotope that exists in nature.
So then you were aware of this occurring in the slag.
We just weren't aware that it was causing problems in structures as a result of it, and we still aren't sure that it does cause problems in homes that are built out of that specific material. An example of that, and we have made some selective measurements in buildings here on the TVA reservation that we know contain the slag in the building material. In North Carolina State Health Department, in cooperation with North Carolina State University, did a study on buildings constructed of granite in Raleigh, North Carolina, primarily state office buildings. In these buildings, the levels of radioactivity were essentially the same as those of the buildings built in this area from the phosphate slag itself. There's also been a study that was conducted by Dr. Bern Kahn at Georgia Tech that would also substantiate those same types of measurements. He had made measurements of buildings containing the phosphate slag and buildings not containing phosphate slag but other types of building materials, and the levels in those buildings are essentially the same. So as I said, it's a naturally occurring isotope which is radioactive and exists in all types of building materials, whether it be clay, brick, concrete, granite, any type of material like that will be radioactive to some degree.
Okay. I think that's all. Okay. I need you to talk.
Need me to talk?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
I'll listen.
I need you to talk to Ralph, please.
Well, as I pointed out in our earlier discussions, the state health departments and EPA do not really consider it to be an immediate problem. We are going to work systematically in developing a program to evaluate the situation.
And then sometime after February 15th.
Right. If you want to call it an ad hoc committee of the large committee that met yesterday, they will establish a monitoring program or a suggested monitoring program which will be evaluated by the entire committee, which gets all the states and EPA involved. And we will then proceed to monitor various types. For example, one that may have a basement, one without a basement, one constructed partially in block, another constructed entirely in block, to be sure that we cover all possibilities of home construction. And then following that, if there are, at the end of uncomfortable about coming to work in the morning, we have a quite competent professional staff.
Ask the question again?
Okay. Mr. Belvin, you've told me...
1 second. Your head's coming in.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Belvin, you've told me that this building that we're sitting in was at least partially constructed out of the concrete block which contains the radioactive slag we've been discussing. Does that make you apprehensive about coming to work in the morning?
Not at all. We have, as I indicated, made measurements in the building. Those measurements are in the comparable level of the guidelines that were established for the Florida Remedial Action Program. We have a very competent staff here that have evaluated the situation, and all of our employees have been informed of the situation, and we really don't have any reluctance to come to work in the morning. We do not feel that it's a significant health hazard. It's we feel it's a lot more dangerous to drive to work in the morning than it is after we get to work and are exposed to this potential problem here.
And the evening rush out of here is no greater now than it was before?
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Don't y'all work too hard now. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
we time from the moment that we turn on the instrument until we turn it off, stop per hour at this particular location.
Which one?
Well, here where the instrument is located. And the digital readout up here is a micro hour per hour reading. It's an instantaneous reading. So
That micro radiation, is that equivalent
Right.
voltage or hazard rate voltage or current
it's really a current measuring
or
device.
current measurement?
So this is an instantaneous reading,
Right, right.
and this one is an integrating reading over a long.
Which one?
The strip chart recorder over here simply records these instantaneous readings. So it gives us a permanent record of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, that's what you don't want. too.
Throw something over there.
Wait, don't do that. Hmm? You on it? Okay, right there. Okay, I throw it just above that.
A little bit to the left.
A little bit to the left. I'm gonna shit this up. I know that, mister.
Yep.
Oh, right. Do you have that rock in the picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
So high.